Well, I'm headed to Greenville, and I've changed my Hinge. And, dude, I think that was on Sunday. So it's Friday now. And 49 inbound.
That's wild.
It's fucking wild, dude. It just keeps going. And I'm just like,
Holy cow.
okay.
Welcome back to Wife or Bust. It's episode 5, and it's been 3 weeks since we caught up. So Joel has been on 5 in-person dates with 4 different women, because you had 1 second date, right?
Correct.
You've updated your profile.
Yes.
You're also going to be trying Hinge out of town, which is a whole nother topic.
Yes, it is.
And we're going to cover that and more in today's episode.
Wife or Bust.
Yeah. And if you haven't seen the previous episodes, after this one, you're going to want to do it.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are.
All right, man. There's a lot for us to catch up on.
Yep.
Let's start with you. I mean, you had your first date lined up when we ended episode 4.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. How did that one go?
Oh, man. It's good. I mean, that's going all the way back. So this was this was an inbound. So someone who liked my profile. And we reached out and we started chatting. And what was really like serendipitous about this whole thing is that this woman was like, "Oh, I saw your Wife or Bust," which is now being actually almost all of them have seen the Wife or Bust. And so we're going in there with transparency. And I ask all of them, I go, "Do you have any questions or is there anything you'd like to talk about before we go on our date about the show?"
Whoa.
And all of them go, "No." I started watching it and I realized, no, I just want to get to know you.
All of them said that.
All of them.
That's really interesting because typically women are little investigators. The second they match with you or they hear about you or you approach them, they'll look everywhere for you.
Everywhere.
But maybe they saw enough to be like, oh, this guy's consistent with who he is. I'm going to leave some room for magic in person. Or did they tell you why?
Well, they said to me, they're like, it just felt like I was, what was the word they used? Like almost like creeping on you. Like it was like, I wanted to get to know you, not through this show, because episode 1, I put it all out there. So they're like, no, I don't want to hear it from a show. I want to hear it from you. So they were seeking that connection and that openness and vulnerability and transparency, because on a lot of the profiles, that's what they're asking for.
Yeah.
Emotionally intelligent man, right? Knows their emotions, so on and so forth. And so now here's like, they're getting a snippet of it. They're actually going and looking at like, oh shoot, this guy actually is going to do this. All right, I don't need to know anymore. I just want to see, is he going to do it with me live and in person? And I found it very intriguing. There's only been one of the dates that I went on where she didn't mention, maybe she knew, but didn't mention like, hey, I saw your show. But out of the 4, 3 of them were like, I saw Wife or Bust. So, anywho, going back to the very first date, she reached out, we started chatting, I think the second message was her going, hey, I saw Wife or Bust and I'm actually doing something very similar. And
No way.
I swear to you, dude. And I'm like, what? I was like, I knew I should have got the URL husband or bust. I haven't, but I did get Wife or Bust URL. You guys watch out.
What's it called when women freeze their eggs? I promise this is relevant.
Yeah. Yeah.
The actual terminology.
I don't know.
It needs to be husband or that.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
Oh.
That's the name of her show. Oh my gosh.
Here it is again. You're right. Yeah, you're right. Somebody's gonna know.
But is she actually doing that, or was that a joke, or like
So
her
we
banter?
sit down, right? And so the very first date, I threw it out there because it's on my profile about swing dancing. And I said, let's go swing dancing. And she was like, done. So I set a time, sagebrush. This time, I'll meet you outside. And that's something that I've done with all the dates I've been on. I'll meet you outside. You'll know exactly where I'm at.
So you didn't, because we talked about at the end of episode 4, you didn't decide to call them an Uber or Uber with them or whatever? You're like, I'll meet you at the location.
So I offered her. Do we make up names or?
Oh, yeah. Okay, there's 4.
There's 4.
This is.
We're gonna call.
Should we call her Showgirl? Because she said she joked about having her own show.
Okay, yeah. Showgirl. We'll call her Courtney.
Okay.
Call her Courtney. And so, yes, I offered Courtney, and I said, "Hey, I'll come pick you up. I'll Uber." She was like, "No, that's okay. Like, I'll meet you there." Awesome invitation. A no. One of my favorite things is a woman telling me no, because what it's saying is I know what I want. And so that's my story that I tell myself. And guys, it's a good thing to actually take that story too as well, because so many men get a no and they get super insecure.
Very reactive.
Right? Very reactive.
Which is a huge red flag that early into anything.
Super red flag.
A big ick factor.
Huge ick factor. So she ends up driving herself, and I just got there early. I made sure one of the things I do before I go on any date is I cut off phone usage.
So smart, man.
Hour to 2 hours beforehand. So I'm not having those like dopamine hits, right? I'm building up to be able to have the real thing. So 2 hours before, I pretty much like shut off my phone. So no text message, no Instagram, no nothing. And so I sat out there. I got there 30 minutes early, and I just sat on a bench and just watched cars go by for 30 minutes. Yeah, just waiting for her. And she came, and I saw her coming because she drove up and she saw me. She waved. And so then I walked to where she was parking so that I could meet her, and walked up, gave her a hug. A beautiful girl, great smile. And we went and sat down on a bench outside of sagebrush.
That's awesome.
And we talked for an hour, dude. Just chatting. We talked about God. We talked about her, like her experience of coming to Christ, and her story is wild. She came to Austin, I want to say 10 years ago from Wisconsin, and she came here with something in her stomach of, man, I feel like I'm trying to find something more. Right? I'm like, I'm actually trying to seek and find God. And she came here and started to go to yoga. And she went to yoga, and this particular studio was very into Buddhism. And so there was a lot of like spirituality that was there. And so she dove headfirst into it. And she was like, she became a yoga instructor, and she was teaching about Buddhism and these different theories.
Wow.
And she was diving in, and she was like, and it still felt like something was missing. And I was like, I'm like all ears at this point. I'm like,
on the edge of your seat.
Dude, I'm like, this is yes, because there is something missing. It's called Jesus.
It's called me. Just kidding.
Jesus, Joel, like it's close. Yeah. And so she continues to tell the story, and she was like, I started realizing that it wasn't this. And then in Buddhism, it talked about all the gods, and Jesus was one of them. And so I started studying on Jesus more, and I got more and more curious. And at that time, a neighbor moved in who had a relationship with Jesus. And all these things in this guy's life was going wrong. Everything, money, relationships, health, everything was going wrong. And she was like, but he kept smiling. He said, it's God's plan, and I fully trust it. And she was like, who would do something like praise a God in which nothing is going right?
It's very Job-esque,
very
right?
Job-esque, right? And so it just made her even more curious. And then at the same time, her friends had just gave their life up to Christ. Some of her closest friends, and they were talking, but at the same time, she felt like spiritually, it still doesn't make total sense to her. And so she then was talking to her hairstylist, who was like, oh, we run an ayahuasca retreat just outside of Texas. Like, if you want to find God, you're going to find it in an ayahuasca.
Okay.
And
Very Austin.
very Austin. And I'm sitting there, I'm just like, that sounds dead on Austin, right?
Yep.
You know, and so she ends up signing up for this, paying a bunch of money, you know, goes out, is like really looking forward to this. And she gets out there, first night, you drink the ayahuasca, right? And this is a big group of people, right? And nothing happens. So she goes back, she gets another cup of it. Nothing happens. She goes to sleep. Wakes up the next day, the whole group comes together and everybody's talking about their big spiritual experience, right? Them seeking the universe and floating through space and meeting God and touching God. And she was starting to get really upset as she's hearing everybody else. She was like, I just want to meet God. Like I'm like craving this connection with God. And they were like, don't worry, she will come to you tonight, which is, they call ayahuasca she. I didn't know that.
Oh,
and maybe that's just them, or I don't know.
Yeah.
And so the leaders like gave her a little extra. Right.
Yeah, maybe put a little bit of like MDMA and LSD in there too.
Just dropping everything in there.
Just like maybe some creatine, morphine.
Yeah,
Right.
100%. And so they give her this huge glass of like extra dose, right? And she was like, I was so excited because I was like they're treating me special. Though, like this was like extra dose. Nothing happens. She wakes up in the morning and she packs up her stuff. She's so frustrated. I've spent all this money. Nothing happened. Packs up her stuff, is driving home. She's crying, right? She's super, super upset. And she, you know, was calling her friend who was just saved and telling the story. And she goes, Courtney, I've been praying about you all weekend long to protect you, that God protects you. And she got back and she's like, whoa, weird. She got back home.
That's interesting.
She sees her neighbor, they're running their dogs together, and she tells the story, and he's like, I was praying all weekend for God to protect you.
That's so interesting.
And so here it was, this incredible, and I'm like on the edge of my seat. I'm like, this is amazing, right? Because I'm a full believer, right?
Yeah, so this whole
God can
process
heal,
is going to be
right?
more fascinating
Dude,
to you.
I'm
Yeah.
100% in. And she tells the story, and then, you know, she then committed her life to Christ and got baptized, and, you know, then we talked more about God and her like wrestling around with God, and that things are still hard, and she's trying to figure it out. And we were just able to get into this really deep, like beautiful conversation about God to the point that like the sun was going down, she was starting to get a little cold, and it was like, okay.
Were you still sitting on the bench this entire
The
time?
entire time, dude.
Wait, in Sagebrush, were you going to go dancing there?
Yeah, that was
You
the plan.
you did the dance of the mind and not of the body.
Oh, but we got to it.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, we did.
So how long were you sitting on this bench?
Probably an hour and 15 minutes.
And it was mostly about her story,
Her story,
Yeah.
which I talked a little bit about my story and how I
which
came-
makes sense
Yep.
because like one of the first things you said a few episodes back was like relationship with God, religion, that specific, you know, focus on it is the biggest make or break for you.
100%.
Yeah. So it's cool that you can hit that right out of the gate.
Right out.
Take note, boys. Don't shy away from talking about the things that matter, especially in the first date.
100%. And we connected really well on that. And then we went and just got inside the sagebrush, and there wasn't a ton of people, which was perfect. And we started swing dancing, or two-stepping, I should say. That's a West Coast thing to say. We started two-stepping, and she'd done some two-stepping, but just enough for her to like follow the lead and kind of understand.
Which is perfect.
Oh, it was absolutely perfect, because then I got to go, well, can I teach you this or that? And so, you know, was able to teach her this and that. And by the end, you know, we're swinging, I'm dipping her and diving, and she knows when I twist her this way, or I say, hey, when I set you up here. And so we're all over the dance floor, and we come outside, and there's this lady sitting at a bench. She said, I've been watching you guys all night, and your choreograph is amazing. I'm like, just thank you.
That's so
right.
cool.
We're choreographed.
Yes,
the whole thing.
this whole thing.
This whole thing is choreographed. And so we end up chatting a little bit more on the bench, and then she takes me home to my apartment because I took an Uber there, and she was like, well, I can drive you home, no big deal.
Yeah.
So she drives in there, and we pull up into the parking garage, and she was just going to drop me off. It was late, and then we're kind of sitting in the car and chit-chatting. Like,
You better kiss her.
no kiss.
No kiss.
No
Okay.
kiss. No kiss. We were sitting in the front seat, and I didn't feel called to kiss her.
That's an important point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't feel called to kiss her. It wasn't. I usually don't kiss on the first date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to talk about that a little later. I'm not saying you need to change. I realized that was like I said in a dad voice, like there's
You need to,
boy,
you
you better smooch. Anyhow, but don't let me forget that. Sorry, continue.
The way you dropped your chin and everything, dude, is so good.
I'll tell you why.
That's so great. And so we ended up just sitting there, and we actually, she's a really beautiful singer. She plays the guitar, and so then we were talking about like, oh, what's the song you sing? And she played her song. She was like, what about you? And I was just like, drop Old Red, right? Have you ever heard of Old Red?
No.
Oh man, it's a goodie.
Yeah.
It's a goodie.
Is it a low? Is it a low register? 'Cause you'd crush
Lower,
that.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's lower.
heck yeah.
And so I did Old Red by Blake Shelton, I believe. And then I sang. She's like, you're a good singer too. And so we sit there and we chat, and it's getting late, and finally it's like, hey, we both need to get to sleep. So, get out, give her a hug, and she goes home. And she was talking about, I don't know how we got into this, but we got into my voice. And I was like, oh yeah, I do sleep casts, right? Where I'll read a story. And I was just like, I can give you a super simple sleep cast tonight, because she was talking about how she struggles with sleep a little bit. So what I usually do is I go onto ChatGPT and I explain like, hey, this is the person, this is the situation, da, 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 da. Give me a 5-minute sleep cast or sleep story. And so it paints this like sleep story, and I recorded it real quick and sent it over to her. And
Look at the way you're smiling. You love that you did this.
oh, I do it 100%.
Oh, that's so cool, man.
Well, there's two parts. One, I feel very lucky and blessed that I have my grandfather's voice. Like, it does remind me of my grandfather, and I don't have a lot of great memories of my grandfather, my dad's dad. This is one of them. Like, his voice, you'd always be like, you would lean in because you're like, man, that voice is different. And two, sleep is really an essential piece. And to bring comfort to somebody, because I've sent it to men, women, kids, right? I'm not saying kids, I'm saying to the parents. Like, don't give me a catch.
Just DMing underage people. Listen to this before you go to sleep.
Stop it, dude. Cut it.
No, we're leaving that in there.
I just now literally just got put on the FBI list.
Yeah,
Thank you, dude.
We all have an FBI agent. They're always listening. All right, so you sent her this.
Sent it. She listened to it. It was like, I slept the best I've slept in a while.
That's a true gift.
Yeah, it was. I like sharing it, right? And so we had a great date, and so that was date number one. That was date number one.
So after that one,
yeah,
did you have another first date quickly after that, or do you have some time to kind of marinate on how that one went and how you felt about it?
That was Saturday. It was Saturday, and then my next date was Friday. So
so you had almost a whole week.
Yeah, almost a whole week.
So what during that time?
Yeah.
How were you feeling? What kind of communication did you have with her? And what was your general first impression of her after the date? Because I think it'd be really interesting to know, like, were you kind of exploring or discovering how you felt about her, or was it no question? You're like, oh, I'm very interested. I want to continue to see her again. Was there any internal struggle at all, or was it very clear for you?
No, there wasn't an internal like struggle, like, oh, should I or shouldn't I? We stayed in contact like every couple days, right? We would just naturally, reach out to each other. And I do believe that I was really excited to be dating again. Like my life has been about work and serving other people and healing my relationship with my mom and my injury with my dad and, moving to Austin and ending my business partnership. And like, it's like everything has been like work,
A lot of serious shit.
take, and here I was, that just this beautiful woman with an incredible smile, with a great story, that we were able to, swing dance and just laugh with each other. And like, even the physical touch of a woman, right? Like I just I haven't had that, right? And so,
let me interject something real quick, because I think a lot of men and women think that dating is just this investment, and when it doesn't work out, you got the short end of the stick. But it's not like that, because let's take your example. You have a lot of sincere things that I don't want to say wear you down, because you're a capable man, but it is a barrage of a certain end of the spectrum of experience.
Right.
And then being on a date with a woman and having a wholesome experience, regardless of whether you all end up together or not, is such a wonderful thing. And it helps both of you.
Yeah.
Like women crave that experience from a man, and men need that experience from a woman. And so, like, especially with everything you're dealing with, I couldn't be happier for you, because
thank you.
That's what makes dating so exciting. It not only does it shape you, but women have this unique sense of peace and relief and experience that they can give a man that a man can't get on their own.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm really glad to hear that. So you talked here and there after the date, but what was your initial impression after the date? Did you say to yourself, I want to see her again? Or, that was nice, but I don't see a future with this woman?
No, my first initial reaction was like, oh, I want to see her again.
Okay.
I'm curious, and I'm very interested. And there was multiple times throughout the week where she just popped into my head. There was times that I just wanted to hear what she was up to. Those are all really good feelings of like, hey, like you're on my mind, and I like that. And I also had this feeling from the beginning too, was going, and I want to keep dating. And I want to keep dating. So there was this really wholesome experience. And I had this feeling of like, I want to keep dating. It wasn't I'm done here. Like I want more and more time.
So when you say keep dating, do you mean continue to get to know her while you see if there's another woman out there that you would jive with, or continue dating, but like, that was a nice experience, but I'm going to move on to other experiences?
Yeah. So initially in that week, it was, I already had these like dates, booked on.
Yeah.
So I initiated a second date. I said, hey, let's go to church. It's something that we share. So let's go to church and see what that experience is like. Because for anyone who I'm going to date and to marry, church is going to be something that we do. So how do we do it together? And so that was a big thing for me to be able to go, well, let's go to church together.
That's a really unique second date, because even though, religion, religion and Christianity are important to me, I would never have thought about doing that as a second date. So I wonder if other people do that. Well, after listening to this, they might, if that's important to them too.
Yeah.
But yeah. So how did that go?
So second date went well. I told her I'd come pick her up. Right.
Nice.
Uber Premier, of course. Uber, if you want to sponsor this, just let us know. We got you.
You and Heart and Soil.
Yeah. Hard and soil.
Hard on soil. Whole package, gents. Whole package.
Animal baits. Get your discount code. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'll come pick you up. And initially I was thinking like, is this the time that I try Black Lane, which is another app. It's like the higher version of Uber. If you guys don't know Black Lane.
I've never heard of it.
You don't want to. Well,
not a great experience?
No. There's some guilty pleasures that I have. Having people drive me around is one of them.
Yeah.
And I didn't know until I got to Austin, because I always drove myself.
Yeah.
And I started off with like Uber X. I was like Uber Comfort. And then it's like Uber Premier. And like even today, I was one of my buddies is here and he's staying at my apartment. And so we were getting breakfast and I call my Uber and it's a, black Suburban that comes rolling up, right? Captain seat chairs. And so some of the guys from the CrossFit gym are walking up and this black Suburban pulls up and they're just like, damn, bro, where are you going? Is it just you?
Is it just you?
I'm like, yes, it is. I need my captain chairs.
Yeah, my
right?
chariot awaits me.
So my point is, Black Lane is like it's only Mercedes E-Class, like suit and tie, like whatever. If an Uber Premier is $50, it's gonna be $150.
I got you.
So it's just a really high tier, and you get like 50% off on your first travel. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll do this, like not to like show off by any means. It's I wanted to experience, and that's what been a big thing with dating is like, I want to go to that restaurant. Well, I'll bring them with me. I want that. I want to try that experience. Well, I'll do it with someone. And I'm really glad I didn't, because it probably would have been a $500 day, if not more, because she lived far east. So I was going from West 5th, basically, to the opposite, completely other side.
Like Middle East.
Airport, right, status. So yeah, the Middle East. Dude, are we going back to the unit or the
I forgot about that one.
And so it was like, I don't know, $50 or $60 to get to her there. Then we went to church. And then after church, we went to brunch. And after brunch, we went back to her house and her house back to my house. And so it ended up being like, oh, I think I just spent like $200 on Ubers.
Wow.
Going back and forth and so on and so forth.
But I like that you're smiling as you say that, because
it was so much fun, dude.
The experimentation is really important about the whole process. And it's not even just about what you say to the woman or the women. The experimentation is about everything to do with it, even adjacent things. So I'm glad you're doing that, because that's where the gamification, the progression, the gratification comes from, is trying things out and seeing what's your style. Because again, I probably would not have tried that. Probably would not have gone to church on the second date.
Right.
Probably wouldn't have gotten there 30 minutes to sit on a bench. But these are all things that are very you. And so it builds off of what we talked about in episode 1 and 2 about doubling down and maybe even like solidifying or discovering the authenticity that is really magnetic, because that'll just serve you and the women you date so much in the long run. So it's neat to see these things, like ideas we talked about, to actually manifest into actions or preferences or experiments. Like that gets me so excited, man.
Oh man. And listen, she liked it too. She was she was like, I don't know how I feel like getting pulled up to church, like, in a nice car. And then we pulled
like
up to
the
church.
First Lady, probably.
We pulled up to church in a brand new like Suburban, like, and just like pulls up, pops out, right? We pop out, and I was like, we're walking, and I was like, kind of cool, huh? And she's like, yeah, it was cool. And again, it's not to show off. It's a cool experience. It's an experience that I really enjoyed, and I'm glad she got to experience that with me. And so then we went into church, and I'm a kind of guy where I sit up in the front, right? People pay thousands of dollars to get front row seat tickets to concerts. This is the greatest concert on earth to me, right? When there's worship and everything else. And she was like, yeah, I'm game, which is also a test for me. You want to be hanging in the back. I don't want to be seen, And she was, nope, let's go right to the front.
Nice.
And we went to the front and we worshiped, and it was perfect because I showed you, they're on a series right now about dating.
Oh yeah. Yes, they are. I've had so many people send that to me. Yeah.
And so it was good to then, now here we are talking about dating and talking, being transparent and opening up about like dating and the importance of, God being in the relationship and everything else. So after we hung out, because you got to let everybody clear out before you order your Uber.
Especially if you're on the front row.
Particularly front row, dude. You just can't hang, dude. And that's my style too. I'm like, I'm not on a rush to get out of church. That's crazy talk. Like, no, I want to keep sitting here even longer in the house of the Lord. And she was game for it too. And then we ended up taking an Uber, and we went out to brunch. We went to Picnic. Have you ever been to Picnic?
Yes.
It's great.
Great spot.
Fantastic.
Yeah, pretty clean food and a great date spot.
Yeah. Yeah, all gluten free, which is what I love, man. And so we end up having brunch there, and it was good conversation. And at a point when we were talking, there was nothing that like highlighted off, nothing that was like, I just went like, not what I was expecting. It was like I was like, I thought there would be another like level to connection, and it wasn't there. And I was like, interesting. And we ended up, heading back and dropping her off, and I went on with my day. She went on with hers, and we haven't talked since.
Really?
Yeah.
So she hasn't reached out to you. You haven't reached out to her.
No.
What's interesting about that is, and I try not to be prescriptive about these things,
Right.
but you, as men, we want to know why. We're logical. So you're like, why did I feel that? Well, everything else checks off. I should continue this, but I think that's all you need to know.
Right.
I think a lot of times we override our intuition to our own peril and the unnecessary suffering of the women we interact with.
Yes.
So I'm glad in a way that after you felt that, you didn't try to force it. But my question is, did you close the loop with her after you felt that way? Why, or I guess not. But why not?
It's really interesting with her, and she led into this too in the very beginning. She was like, hey, listen, regardless how this works out, it would be really neat just to have somebody else that's walking with the Lord. And after our conversations and what she's doing, which I didn't tell you what she's doing, since January, you're gonna love this, she's following some prescription that some pastor put out, and there's a book to it and so on and so forth. But it's basically like she tries to get 5 contacts from men a week. So like whether a number, a connection, a hinge, greet somebody in the store, so on and so forth. Because this pastor is like, so many women are sitting back and going like, I'm just waiting for God to deliver this guy. And he's like, no, it's a numbers game. Like, if you're interested and you want to be married, you need to go see the men that are out there.
Yeah, or be open to it.
Be open to it. And so I think I was 83 or something, because she started in January.
Oh, wow.
So like,
wow, that beats my record.
Yeah. I don't think it was 83 dates.
Oh.
Might be 83 connections.
Yeah.
And maybe it was, I don't know.
Yeah.
And so
that's so great though. In like
incredible.
5 months or ish. Yeah.
And so that's what's been really interesting with Courtney, is that it's like we were both on this like process of like, we're seeking a wife, she's seeking a husband, both with the Lord. And I didn't feel like it needed a closure. And which is interesting, because the date that I went on with,
are you going to keep all these names straight?
I got it too.
From the real, okay.
I got it. With Mary.
Okay.
Mary was the next date that I went on, and we went to Aries Steakhouse, which is a really great steakhouse. Had a great time. After our date, like we laughed, we had fun, we talked about some serious stuff. She opened up about some really like deep stuff with her family. I opened up about my family. And at the end, I ordered an Uber, dropped her off at her house. I walked home, and then the next day I spent the rest of the day just thinking about it, and then sent a text message to her and just told her, I'm not feeling that really pulled for a second date. I just want to be open and honest and transparent. I had such a great time.
Yeah.
We laughed, all these compliments, right? Then go to I want to be transparent, and I wish you the best in finding love.
Yeah.
And she was very receptive to that and said, hey, thank you for your transparency. You know what? I didn't feel that connection I was looking for at the end of the night either. So thank you for reaching out and telling me that.
That's so huge.
That was 24 hours. So the difference between
Yeah.
Courtney and Mary is that with Mary, it was like, hey, we had this time and we like ordered appetizers and, you know, we laughed and, you know, she ordered some juicy, spicy wine, which we were dying laughing about because she didn't know anything about wine. Don't know much about wine either. And she was like, I just feel like the wine should be juicy and spicy. And I'm like, please say that to that guy, to our waiter.
That's so funny.
She did. She's like, I'm looking for something like juicy and spicy. Does that make sense? And he's like, I have it for you. And he was very like, he had these
Like the
hand
Italians,
motions, right? It was, dude, he had these like magical hands and like, this guy he was a character. I mean, we had a great time with him.
Yeah.
But it was just a very lighthearted, really enjoyable experience. She was beautiful. She was, I would even say she exceeded her Hinge profile.
That's rare. Typically, it's,
that's
the
what
other way
I
around.
would say too. And like staring across her, I was like, gosh, you're prettier in person than on Hinge.
Which is what I think all people should aim for, is to be more beautiful in person, men and women.
Yes, 100%.
But it's rare that you encounter it on either side.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was Friday night with Mary.
Real quick, I like the comparison, not even comparison, but just illustrating the range of how you can feel after a first date, because I think this is where a lot of guys get tripped up with analysis paralysis. And the fact that joke you shared with the juicy, spicy wine is kind of gives us a specific example of how men and women can walk away from an experience benefiting, because it's like you both laughed, you had a great experience, you had this inside joke, and if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. It's not a waste of time. It's never a waste of time. And there is going to be an array of how you feel after a first date. Like you might be like, you know what, I need to go on a second one in order to know more about this person.
Right.
And I find that this typically is the case, that guys deep down really know the answer. We just try to rationalize ourselves out of what we know to be true in our gut and our intuition. And again, that only leads to, that's where the true waste of time and resources and energy, and this is going to sound a little forceful or even abrasive, but that's where the real disrespect comes from, is not listening to your gut and your intuition. There's nothing wrong with, I need to know more before I make a decision. But saying, I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but I'm too lonely, or I need validation, or she's hot, or lust, whatever it is. And so I'm going to ignore what I know to be true. That's the only way I really feel like we can fail women. If you're just doing your best and you're stumbling forward, that's okay. Everybody's doing that.
That's right.
So yeah, I'm really proud of you for telling Mary, did you know? Okay.
Yeah.
That the day after. And that was the case for me as well, with almost 80 first dates at 2 different periods of being single.
Yeah.
I would say somewhere in the neighborhood of like 60 of them I knew before the date was over. And I reflected on it the next day to be sure, but then I would, call, voice message, FaceTime, whatever I felt was appropriate to tell them something similar. And the quick tip for the guys listening, and maybe even women too, I wonder if it would work in their situation, is, and we were just talking with one of the guys here in the studio before we pressed record.
Yeah.
It's really nice to close the loop when it feels like the right thing to do, because, and lead it kind of this way with saying, hey, I respect you. This is something I appreciate about you. Don't lie about it, but like give them something good to go off of, and then tell them I didn't feel the spark.
Right.
And then wish them the best and hope that they find the right person, because, and I imagine it sounds like your text was similar. Women don't always get that experience.
Yeah.
And so as good men, I really do feel like it's our responsibility to show them that just because things don't work out, and maybe they do want that, maybe they don't, but just because things don't work out, that doesn't mean it can't be a net positive experience that has definitive closure. And I think that's very important. And I also wonder, if we all did this, men and women alike, how would the dating world change for the better? Like no ghosting, no ambiguity, no toxicity, just nothing but respect. And then you can redistribute energy into other places and other things. And that's a real gift to people. So I'm glad that you did that. And which brings me to a little bit of a challenge on Courtney's side of things. I mean, if it's a mutual feeling, you both kind of know, right? Like I was going to say, why not also be explicit with Courtney? But then the contrarian in me is like, well, if you both know, do you really need to overdo it? But I always felt better, and maybe I did it for me. I don't know, maybe it was selfish. I always felt better to have it be explicit because my preference is to over communicate than to keep people guessing or keep myself guessing. But some people be like, well, that's just selfish, just unnecessary. It's like, well, does it really hurt to say it? So I'm curious what your thought process was with her.
You know, it's so interesting because I remember this is a listening a memory, and I do. Let's loop back around to this at some point because I actually want to share the message like word for word.
Please do.
Right. So that
Speaking of juicy.
Well, so that people can hear
and
it.
Spicy.
Right? Yeah, juicy and spicy. Gosh, that was the best. We both were laughing our butts off on that one. But I remember Corey actually talking about you when I first met Corey. So the very first time I was in Austin, and
is that 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2-3 years ago, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And he was talking about you and going on all these dates and so on and so forth. And he was telling me about, he's doing this conscious dating and with integrity and so on and so forth. And he was telling me about how you always made sure to close the loop. So whether it was FaceTime or in person or so on and so forth. And you know what was interesting? This was one of my kickbacks was like, man, I wonder what they were feeling when they were getting a FaceTime. Oh, great. I'm about to have this experience with Chris. And it was, oh, hey, I just wanted to be honest with you. And all of a sudden go from a high to like this dropping low. And somebody said this to me, my dear friend Sabrina said this to me, and it has stuck ever since. I was talking to her about, reaching out to, I was going through this kind of like breakup with a girl that I was just dating for a little bit, and then I'd reached out, and I'm like, man, why wouldn't she say anything back? And she looked at me and she said, Joel, no answer is an answer. Mm-hmm. And I went, and I was like, no answer is an answer.
It is with nuance, because I did screw up a few times. You don't always need to call or FaceTime. So voice message was my go-to if the first date was okay, but I definitely didn't see a future. It's just nicer because text can be misinterpreted so easily. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to send a voice message, and my tone was very direct out of the gate. So it wasn't like I was trying to play with their emotions or go through this roller coaster ride. I did make the mistake of a couple of women. We went on a couple dates, and I was like, oh, maybe it'll be better to FaceTime them or even like swing by their place. So that definitely, because I was failing forward, right? I was out of divorce, never been on the apps, never lived in a city. I didn't know how any of this worked because I always knew the women for years, and they knew me that I dated and married, back in Virginia, the small town that I grew up in. So I learned the hard way, like, oh, you do need to be very intentional, or even ask yourself, when is it appropriate to do what? To your credit, there's nuance there. But it's, again, if I had to risk over or under communicating, I'd rather over communicate. If not for my sake, for other people's sake. But that's my preference. So I don't know if it's a right or wrong answer here. Mm-hmm. But I think if I were to make a guess, the grand majority of men and women probably feel like the dating world has too much under communication.
Agreed. I would agree with that.
But there's always going to be some outliers and some circumstantial variables. So I think it's just important that people ask themselves, in this situation, what do I think is appropriate?
Right.
And have I communicated my intentions? Yes. Or are they obvious enough if you choose not to communicate it?
Yes.
That would be kind of how I wrap that up.
Yes. And I believe this is a good comparison. And there's two other dates here, and we'll cover that in the next episode. The contrast between Courtney and Mary and the communication, it was two different things. There wasn't a box for it, right? And what you're talking about and what I'm really leaning into is being able to go follow your intuition. I know that I trust that I have character. I trust myself that I'm going to say the right thing or allow the thing to be able to pass and slide. I trust myself. And I think a lot of men don't trust themselves, or women don't trust themselves. And this is where I believe what you're doing in creating the group. What's your community called again?
the dating edge community,
The dating,
based off the book title too.
because there's the framework of the book, and you sent me like, hey, here's how to close the loop. And I saw the frameworks and I was like, man, this is really good. And obviously you and I talked about it and walked through, is teaching people to be able to go trust here.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a framework, but this knows best. It knows the intangibles that no book, no coach, or anyone else can teach, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know you best. And that's in my coaching, I go, I don't have the answers, you do.
Yeah, that's
My
so
job
wise.
is just to ask the questions, but I am not here to give you an answer. You are here to give yourself the answer.
That's so wise.
And being able to trust that, both with Courtney and Mary, where Mary was like, man, what a great time, and close the loop. With Courtney over here, there was just something in my heart where I was just like, she's not saying anything, I'm not saying, I wasn't overanalyzing, I'm going, there's a pause moment here for a reason. There's a gap here for a reason. I'm trusting that gap with her, and I'm allowing that to settle and rest. Because I even thought about reaching out to her before the show, and I went, no, still something is telling me there's just allow this gap to be here.
Perfect then.
And so with one, there was nothing, and with two, I want to kind of wrap this up with, this is the message that I sent Mary.
All right.
To be able to go, and then I'm really looking forward to the other 2 dates. We'll talk about it in the next episode, because there's a wild story about the Alamo and a much longer walk than needed. This is my message to Mary. Hey, Mary, thank you again for last night. It was truly an honor to spend time with you and share a wonderful meal. I enjoyed our conversations, the laughs, and your ability to be vulnerable with me. It meant a lot to share that with you. After sitting with it today, I don't feel led to pursue a second date. I want to be honest and upfront, as I really respect you and the woman you are. I wish you all the best in finding the love you deserve.
That's awesome. How did she respond?
She said, I appreciate your directness, and I agree. I had a lovely evening, but ultimately left feeling differently than I'd want to if we were to meet again. All the best.
That is ideal. That's how it should go. This is what dating with intention, as a conscientious person, where you're doing your best. That's what that looks like. That's awesome.
It felt amazing, and it's very encouraging.
I love what you brought up with the framework, and I want to touch on that, and then we really, really will wrap up. I read The Prophet recently, reread it by Khalil Gibran.
Yeah.
And he talks in there about, I think he calls it teaching, but I think it applies to leadership and dating a lot too, about no man or woman doesn't already know the truth deep down. And so a good teacher helps them find what they already have within them. And that talks, or rather that's akin to what you were talking about with amplifying what's already within people in the dating world. And so that's the whole point of this idea, this show of you, is we're sharing the framework from my book, from your experience, from these stories, so people can make it their own. So it's not prescriptive. You don't need to copy and paste, but take the principles, ask yourself your questions, and build out your own framework. And then, in fact, I put in the beginning and the end of my book, despite it being 2 years of my life and 600 plus hours of take everything with a grain of salt. But start here, because it might be a good foundation, and then take what resonates and leave the rest. Mm-hmm. And so, and we might have mentioned this in another episode, but it's worth repeating for anyone listening. Like if you would do it differently than Joel, that's fine. If you don't agree with my advice, that's fine. But in the process of entertaining these ideas, you will eliminate some of them, which will help you become more efficient at the one thing that I don't think anyone can really disagree with, is being more of your authentic self, being more abashed to yourself, because that will win you the day in the dating world. And honestly, you'll be at more peace with yourself, which is the one thing a lot of men and women don't have right now, especially when it comes to relationships.
That's right.
So
That's right.
Next episode, the other dates.
Two other dates to be able to talk about the Alamo and a long walk.
And you updated your profiles after some
Yeah.
experience. So we got to talk about that too.
Yes. And I'm headed to Greenville, South Carolina, repinned, and the results are crazy.
Can't wait to hear about it. All right, y'all.
Let's go.
See you next time.